And this will be up on YouTube in a little bit, so you can take a look back at this when we start our exam. Um, more about that starting on Monday. Excuse me. So before we begin, hope you guys are doing okay. Are there any questions on the content that we have, on the materials that we're going over? Hopefully by this weekend or by early next week, I will have a link for you so you can go in and take your StrengthsFinder assessment. Still trying to figure out how to make that happen through my account that I have through the college, so that we can have um, have the college pay for it since it's part of your class. So okay, so without further ado, let me continue. We'll start up again on character, the importance of character. And this time I thought I'd go over a little bit of what character is. And um, we've gone through it pretty heavily, but I wanted to just tie it into something called authentic leadership, which is a peek into what you may do if you take Leadership 220 and see how it all kind of works together, and the importance of character and the character that you are. Again, we talked about character being soft skills. So it's a lot about who you are, not necessarily what you do. It's about the personality of the person. It's about what you value, what's important. We'll talk about traits and values and beliefs today, and how the follower traits and values and beliefs should somewhat align to the leaders. And that makes you a leader worth following. That it's appealing that you believe in forgiveness, and you have humility, and you have respect, and you communicate well enough, and you're understanding, because the unknown happens, like coronavirus, and how do you handle this? So all these parts are part of character. And what I want to do is just kind of go into that a little bit. We mentioned that character is what causes leaders to be worth following. You don't have to have character, but when you do, it makes you somebody who's worth following. And here's why. It's the first line on the slide. A person's character, good or bad, can inspire others to greatness or discourage them from trying. So your character alone can help build and develop other people. In small business, the role of leadership character can't be understated. And this ties into something called authentic leadership, which is you being you. My favorite phrase is be yourself. Somebody else, all the other personalities have been taken, right? Be yourself. People would always want to follow somebody who's real than somebody who's always right. So you may have a vision of who you want to be as a leader, but just be you and kind of work your way toward who you want to grow to be. Right? People will like you for being you, not about what you can offer. And of course, some people will see things transactionally, which is, what can you offer me? How much reward do I get for this? How much money do I get? Vacation time, status, power. We talked about power, all of that. Authentic leaders form a strong personal moral value that have a profound effect on an organization, on your organization, right? The authentic leader is somebody who's real. And we'll talk about some of the details of that in just a moment. A leader doesn't need character to lead, but character makes a leader worth following. And character breeds authenticity. You being you means that your character shines. And as we said last time, character is a pop quiz. It just happens. Have you ever been in a situation where you could have helped somebody, you could have done something that would have been in line with your character, but you didn't? And you step back and thought, man, I should have done something differently. Like, it would have been a lot easier if I had just done that. For me, it's usually seeing somebody who's homeless at an intersection, like being able to give them something, whether financially or a drink or water. At one point, I used to have a cooler of cold water in my car just to hand out to people in the summer. Somebody who's hot or somebody who's sitting on the side of the road looking for some sort of handout. Here you go. This will help you, right? And it's that part of that is that character, volunteering. I volunteer often, and as a role model for my family and my children, instilling in my children, hey, let's go volunteer at such and such Johnson County Foundation Development Corporation or Aspire or wherever, right? Hey, let's go volunteer. Let's go help out this church. Let's go help out this organization. And that idea of feeling good about volunteering, it's breeding character. It's creating the character that you are. And again, it's more of a pop quiz. It's more of a sudden moment. How will you react to a situation stuff? Oop, don't want to miss my video. Um, yeah, okay. So look on the right side first. I thought I would share this with you. Authentic leadership, authentic versus traditional. Traditional leadership, we're going to call it transactional, which is I do something as a leader and then I expect you to do it. If you do it, then you get rewarded. If you don't do it, you get punished or you don't get the reward. So that's more of a traditional leadership style. For those who can think back or look at your family. Parenting is very much a transactional leadership style, right? So transactional, transitional is leading with goals. Here are the goals. Here are the objectives you need to complete. But an authentic leader leads with purpose. They have a personal vision. Authentic leaders will wake up and say, I can't wait to lead today because I get to develop other people, because I get to help the company's bottom line, because I get to develop myself. The authentic leader also leads with principles and values as opposed to a selfish agenda. They lead with their heart instead of with their ego. So it's a feeling instead of a logic. They lead by cultivating long-term relationships and growing those relationships as opposed to accumulating transactions. Again, I ask you to do something, you do it, I reward you. Leading by demonstrating excellence through self-discipline. Going through the self-discipline is sometimes saying no, even though it might hinder your progress or the progress of the organization, because it will compromise your values, it will compromise your character, as opposed to leading by imposing power and authority, having a position, CEO, vice president, etc. So that's authentic leadership, and we'll talk more about that in Leadership 220. But right now, realize that a lot of that is just about who you are. It's your character, right? It's your character shining through. Part of this that should be also mentioned in character is non-compartmentalization. And this isn't something you're going to be quizzed on, but something you probably should know just in the future. A lot of people in business will compartmentalize their personal lives and their professional lives. They'll talk about, here's my professional life, here's I'm trying to look good, or here I'm trying to make things happen, I'm trying to help out the organization, I'm trying to do the responsibilities I have. And now with Zoom, some of that's broken, right? So I don't have any children here with me, but it wouldn't be surprising if my 2-year-old suddenly appeared on my lap and wanted to see you while I'm talking to you. Or my 5-year-old would peek her head in and just see what the faces are that are on the screen, if there were faces on the screen. So on Zoom, that is breaking down that barrier of compartmentalization. And that part of that is your character. I've talked to you that I have 4 daughters. They will pop up every now and then. That's part of childhood curiosity. And so part of that is just the idea that, sorry, letting somebody in the room, that there's that authenticity, there's that non-compartmentalization. And I'll go one step further and say that sometimes your best solutions to your problems at work come from your spouse or come from your children or come from your relatives. Speaking to somebody that you respect who's in your family or friends, saying, I've got this problem, what do you think? Now promise me you won't say anything, because I can't break confidentiality, but here's the situation. I've got this person, she's a follower, she's just really headstrong, she doesn't want to listen to me, etc. What do you think I should do? And sometimes that friend or that relative will help you in a situation that you didn't expect, saying something like, well, what is it that appeals to her? What is it that thinks might be a turn off? What are some things that she values? And then starting to brainstorm from there. So, I mean, it's okay to break that. Part of that is that authentic leadership or that character building. It's that breaking down that barrier between family, personal, and professional. Now, character by definition is a sum of virtues, values, and traits as well as with good character. In addition to competence and commitment, which are character, competence, and commitment are the 3 aspects of good leadership. One of 3 ingredients that make a leader effective and respected. So that's the left side of the screen. So it's the sum of virtues, values, and traits. So what's the difference between a virtue and a value? Well, traits are certain characteristics about you, being you. Values are the values that you believe in: humility, respect, integrity, diversity, etc. Virtues are those values, almost faith-based. They are aspirational. They are inspiring. They are things that I believe in that I may never quite get to, but I'm always going to try. Patience is a virtue, if you've heard the phrase, right? I want to be a more patient person, although I may never get there. I want to be more patient around roundabouts. I want to be more patient when I'm driving. I want to be more patient with my people. I want to be more patient with people who are around me. And some of those that's a virtue. Another one is intellectual virtue. I want to always be learning. I always want to be reading. I want to be listening to audiobooks. I want to learn from other people. I want to kind of grow from there. These are virtue. Wisdom is virtue. Information and knowledge versus wisdom is knowledge is knowing how to do something. Wisdom is knowing how to apply it. So when I have a difficult situation where I have, let's say, a follower who constantly is talking all the time and wants to be the center of attention, wisdom is to know how to handle that situation, to bring that person to the side and talk about it and having that difficult conversation. That's part of wisdom. Hey, I appreciate you. I love your insight. You're very creative. However, other people have insights too. We need to be able to share that time with one another. And so wisdom is a virtue. So the difference between values and virtues are values are something that's easier to obtain. Virtues are something that we aspire toward. So in a little bit more detail here, does a leader have character to be a good leader or strive to even be a better one? Notice that continuous improvement. For those of I've had in supply chain, the idea of Kaizen, right? Continuous improvement of a process. Well, this is continuous improvement of you as a character, as a person. Traits are defined as habitual patterns of thought, behavior, and emotion that are not considered stable in individuals across situations over time. Traits are not fixed, rather they evolve through life experiences, childhood, education, families, etc. Patience is a great example of that, right? So even though it's more of a virtue, but it's something that it's a habitual pattern of thought or behavior or emotion that you continuously think about and you change and kind of transforms, right? So they're not physical traits. It's not skin color, it's not height, it's not weight, it's not that. It's more of a pattern of thought, behavior, and emotion. So an example, this would be, this is what I think of, this is what I handle. Politics would be a great example of this. I believe in this party. I believe in this with human rights or diversification or challenges associated with people. You know, how do I handle an argument? So all of those things are part of that trait, right? Values are beliefs people have about what's important to them. Values are a little bit more than traits. It's more than just a pattern of thought, right? Values are what's important to you, influence behavior because people seek more of what they value. Autonomy, transparency, creativity, and that's why I chose this, because it has good examples. Autonomy is a value. Transparency is a value. Even patriotism and freedom are values. The importance of work-life balance, if you believe in that. We're always trying to figure out how to balance my work and life, that professionalism. Well, I just told you, authentic leadership is breaking down that balance and just kind of blending them together. And some people are completely okay with that and more comfortable than others. Although as a society, we often think we should separate them, compartmentalize them. Values change with life stages. An important subset of values consists of those of ethical or social dimensions: honesty, integrity, compassion, fairness, charity, and social responsibility. So looking at those social or ethical dimensions, a lot of who your values are based on ethics. And I think that's very true. So strongly willed, weakly held, and influenced behavior accordingly. Some may experience value conflicts in certain situations, especially when loyalty conflicts with honesty. For those that had consumer behavior, here's one. I don't know, Sue likes Brian, but Sue doesn't like boys with tattoos. Brian has tattoos, so what do you do? And we have this challenge of, in our minds, like, how do we handle that? Because one thing is to say, forget Brian because he has tattoos. That's not going to happen. Or, hey, Sue's willing to forgive the tattoos because she likes Brian, but we hate this idea of discord, that I have a value that I believe in, and then I have another value that I believe in, and they conflict. How do I handle that? So somebody that I like, somebody I connect with socially, but somebody who has tattoos or somebody who's a smoker. And you either walk away from that situation or you just are willing to forgive and accept it. You change your values, or do you not? Maybe she goes after Brian's roommate instead, you know, whatever it might be. But we hate conflicting values. We try to reconcile them as fast as possible. And then virtues are behavioral habits, something exhibited fairly consistently. This again is something I aspire to. Courage, temperance, that's a great one. Generosity, wisdom, magnificence, etc. All this, patience, things I may never quite get to, but eventually I'm working on. And here's a great example of it. These are virtues, right? Collaboration maybe is more of a skill, accountability more of a skill, but this idea of judgment, balance, taking other people's perspective, situational awareness, transcendence, optimism, far-sightedness, seeing the big picture, temperance, prudence, wisdom, self-control, forgiveness, justice, a sense of fairness and objectivity, impartiality, humility, open-mindedness, modesty. Why did somebody cut me off when driving on the road? Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they just something bad happened. So, you know, trying to figure out, how do I handle that? You know, having empathy and putting yourself in their position. Maybe the person's just a jerk and they cut everybody off. I don't know. But the idea of humility, willing to stop and think about that from the top, integrity and humanity to the left of that, empathy, caring, compassion, judgment. Other way, courage, bravery, confidence, perseverance, accountability. Accountability is hard because I get that it's a character trait, but it's also something that can be a skill that's grown. But I like the words under it. Ownership. So ownership is acting like I own the facility or I own the organization instead of just working here. The great example of ownership is picking up trash. It's when you see trash on the ground for the organization you work with and thinking, you know what, I'm not the owner, but I'm going to get that to make this place a little bit nicer, as opposed to somebody else will get that because I'm an employee. Do you work with the organization or do you work for the organization? So that thought that's there. Stewardship, preserving the resources of what we use, people and stuff and capital, all of that, that I'm going to preserve them and minimize my use of them instead of being wasteful because I'm acting as if I'm a steward to the owner. Steward is somebody who is not the owner, but somebody who is like the owner, right? Following the will of the master, if you will. And stewardship idea comes from the Bible anyway. Well done, good and faithful steward, servant. So that idea that we are being responsible for our resources, responsibility and dependability, being integral, having that integrity, collaboration, working together, consultation, cooperation, communication, etc. So all of these are part of those virtues. Again, all this filters in the character. It makes you worth following. It makes you as a leader start to grow. And other people see this. And you may say, all right, today, guys, we adopted a highway. We're going to go pick up trash on the side of the road. Nobody wants to voluntarily go pick up, I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, but I assume few people want to go outside and pick up trash that's not theirs, especially on a busy highway. But having a leader who has character traits saying, you know what, I want to beautify our organization. I want to give name or credit to our organization's name. I want us to be a good role model for the community. And if you're a good role model, having these virtues or having these values for your followers, people will follow you. They'll come in and say, oh, this is worth it. This person has courage. This person has transcendence. This person has wisdom. This person has a sense of justice, whatever that social justice is. So know that this is part of that and that character that's there. I thought I'd put this one in here too. Notice that character is important for all levels of the organization. As we start at the bottom, we're entry level. And as we start going to the top, now it's senior level. We have mid-level, that's that shaded gray in the middle. And notice that all these values are here, right? So at the bottom, honesty and integrity is important. Trust and trustworthiness is important. Faithful and obedience is important. Having a sense of justice and mercy for customers and for other people around you. Being honorable. As a matter of fact, I think I mentioned last time that, Pat Lancioni, who wrote Five Dysfunctions of a Team, said that trust is the number one thing between organizations working well together and not working well. You have to trust that people are committed to doing what they say they're going to do. And excuse me, they have to trust that they're going to do what they not only say what they're going to do, but that they have the organization and others' best interests at heart. And that's why we do these things. As you start going up, you look at vision, commitment, and discipline, getting things done. Middle management's engagement. Selflessness, I'm willing to sacrifice myself, respect everyone around me, both up and down. Senior level management, attitude and courage, getting through the fear and having a positive attitude that we can do things. And then finally at the top is being honest, just giving truth. And how simple that is, but just how big the deal that is, that as we start growing in our organization, that we have truth about where we're going and what our vision is and how we grow. So again, character is important to all levels of the organization. So, and then just a couple more images that I thought were kind of fun. Looking at integrity, we've talked about integrity showing up when you say you're going to, being where you say you're going to be, doing what you say you're going to do. Look at that respect and responsibility. Those two are responsibility, and then the respect is more the ethics side that we've talked about. Humility, emotional mastery, emotional intelligence, a lack of blame, empathy, again, social awareness, as opposed to responsibility, self-confidence, accountability, focusing on the big picture, having the courage to get through fear. We've talked about courage in the past, and these things all lead to integrity. But if you have more than one than the other, you're not as good as a leader, right? If you have more respect than responsibility, you're a good person to be around, but you may not be responsible. You may not be where you say you're going to be, do what you say you're going to do, so it makes you unreliable. If you have more responsibility, but you don't have respect, then the responsibility is what you thrive on. You are very dependable, you're consistent, you're helpful, you're predictable, which is a good thing in leadership, right? but then you don't have the respect for other people around you. So again, are you a leader worth following? And these tie to integrity, which is one of the virtues we just talked about, and this idea of character. So again, here's just another perspective of how important character is when it comes to the leadership. And then finally, I wanted to put this in place. There's those 3 C's again: character, competencies, and commitment. And see how character is important. Traits, values, and virtues. We just talked about those. Competencies, connecting people, organizational competencies, strategic competencies, business competencies. These are skills that you have. And commitment, aspiration, engagement, sacrifice, things you're willing to do to say, I'm here, even when times get hard. And how all these kind of leak back in toward character. So you have these different competencies that are needed within the organization, which leads to knowledge, understanding, skills, judgment, again, patience, wisdom. This is from a 2010 article. But I just, again, want to reemphasize this value of character that's here. So character and the skills you have, the competencies, plus the commitment that you're going to stay on board as the leader and grow other people. So it is 22 after. Like I said, I wanted to stop here because we're going to talk about emotional intelligence next time. And I wanted to stop and just kind of see what questions you may have. If there aren't any, how are we doing? Does this stuff make sense? I know I feel like sometimes I'm beating a dead horse and that you guys get this already, but at the same time, I want to show you just how important it is, that it's really a big deal. Okay. So earlier this morning, for those who were, I don't know if anybody was on my call with Business 101, but we talked about this idea of the business plan, which is the values of the organization and what they find important, part of their culture, how do we conduct our business, how do we act, how do we behave, tied to the value of the customer. So what are the value added opportunities? What's the value added output or the product of the service? Is it worth buying that? And remember, I think I mentioned at one point, but if I didn't, value is benefit divided by cost. So the amount of benefit I get from something versus the cost of that benefit, there's that value that's put in place. When a company can target a customer with the values of the organization, hey, be like me, this is what we find important, and the value of the product or the service, that's your business target. That's your universal target that captures people's attention. In a similar way, character is the same way with leaders and followers. So here's the value that I can offer you. Here's the value of what you're looking for, meeting your needs. Plus, here are the values that I have and what's important to me and how we're going to grow together. So I thought it'd be just important to mention that that's kind of like a business, except the business is you. The business is the person, the leader itself, or him or herself, and kind of growing from there. So if there are no questions, I'm going to stop the video.